All right, guys. So I'm just gonna move on to the next one because it's kind of important. So with this one, I'm gonna do it a little differently. Okay. I really want you to have a full understanding of why this is so powerful. So I'm going to take a moment, a couple minutes, to change the graphics here, and I want you to just watch. Okay. Don't do anything, just watch. I won't be explaining it, and then once I'm done playing with a few things, I'll go back and explain it and show you how to do it. What I want you to understand is why would this be better than doing it in AutoCAD? Okay, so be thinking about that as I'm working. I might talk a little bit during it because otherwise it's awkward. Yeah, so you can select Earth and just change the color to black, black. You can change the opacity, 50%, make it gray. Select your solstice lines, change them to black. Give it a stroke. Let's see. Go thicker to like a 6 and change the dashes here. Summer solstice. Okay. I don't know what scale we're at. Maybe this needs to be less. More. There we go. Those are off, off. Hatches. Oh, I did that wrong.
Yeah, you did. I think you did it backwards.
I went roof and wall 2. And I went wall 1.
Are you recording? Yeah.
Yep, it's recording. There you go, done.
Damn. Can you do my drawings too?
Actually, it needs to be a little thicker. Okay, so, I mean, there are immediate benefits to doing it in Illustrator versus AutoCAD. It looks like I lost a line or two, actually, which is unfortunate. I need to figure out what's going on with that. That happened to you too, right? Yeah. It might be a file type thing. We'll figure it out. I'll look into it. So, you know, there are very clear benefits to doing it here versus doing it in AutoCAD, right? AutoCAD, you have to set up your plot style. Your plot style might not be the same for every plot. You have to figure out how to process vector and raster in AutoCAD, which is, or used to not be easy. I don't know about now. So here, this is much more intuitive, in my opinion, when you're actually looking at it on sheet, because you don't have to go to a plot preview every time. What you're looking at as you're placing the views on the sheet, it's all as it's actually going to print. So you have the ability to turn things, you know, on and off and just control the layers as you see fit in a very sort of, what's the word for it? You know, off-the-cuff way, I think. Okay, so before I go back and sort of explain what I was doing in more detail, what questions do you have?
Can you zoom in on one of the corners?
Yeah.
Like when you print, it's gonna be rounded off like that as well too, right?
That's a good point. Yeah. So that's a setting of stroke. You can change the stroke value to be capped off as a square.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. So what I'm going to do then real quick in the same video is I'm just going to go back and talk through in more detail what I was doing and how I did it so that you have a more firm understanding. So Control Z all the way back.
I think Control Z didn't work with this.
It does.
It always works.
All right. So let's start with the simple stuff, or at least what I think is the simple stuff, and let's talk about lines. Lines, I briefly introduced them to you before, but there are a couple of ways that you can modify it. If I want to modify all of the lines of a layer to be the same type, which is how I set up my AutoCAD file to be layered, I can select an entire layer by clicking on the little bar to the right of the layer here. So my summer solstice lines, all I have to do is click there and it selects them all. That's yellow. Most of you guys can't see that, but the selection box is yellow there. So it's called stroke. Okay, stroke is like the stroke of the pen or the stroke of the brush. So you can change the settings up top, and I showed you that before, but that doesn't have all of your stroke settings. So here I can change it to black, like that, or with true black, AutoCAD color. I can select how thick I want it to be. I think I set it to like a 10 or something like that. And you can change your stroke by clicking on this, or you can go to the right sidebar and open up your stroke panel here. Now, the stroke panel has a lot of features. You don't need to be familiar with all of them, but you can, at the corners and at the ends of lines, you can cap them in certain ways. There's a butt cap, a round cap, and a projecting cap, which basically means it's going to cut it off at the end point, or it's going to extend the end point and give you a rectangular reference plane cap. Also, the corners can be capped with a miter or a round or a bevel, stuff like that. But the one that you're probably going to be most interested in at first is the dashed line. The dashed line is done by establishing in pixels or dots or points or whatever you're working in, the size of the dash. So it's not like AutoCAD where you have all of your predefined strokes preloaded. You can save a stroke type. They have profiles and stuff that you can save. That's not what I mean. Somewhere else. I forget. But really, it's more you set it for each type and each modification. So if I wanted to do a simple hidden line, I just need to define how long is the dash, how long is the gap, and it'll repeat. So the first dash, I made 30 points, and the gap, I also made 30 points. And that's what that gave me. Now, if I want my dash to just be a dot instead, then I would make the dash 1 point. And then it gives me this instead. If I want it to be a dash, a long dash with a short gap, and then a short dash with a short gap, and then repeat, I have to say, we'll make this 60 with a 30-point gap. No, 20-point gap. And then a 30-point dash, and then a 20-point gap. And that makes a center line. Okay, so yeah, it's a little more kind of like a one-off than it would be in AutoCAD, but these can be saved and loaded, I think. I never actually do that, but I'm pretty sure that feature's there. Let me go back to what I wanted this to be.
Put arrows.
Yeah, you can make arrows at the end. Yeah, all that stuff is all preloaded into this. It's all stroke settings. All right. So, I mean, that's like the gist of lines. If you really wanted to get crazy with it, you can change profiles and make like weird types of lines. I don't know if that's going to do it. The profiles?
Yeah.
You need to have a really thick line to do it. But see how this one like tapers off at the end?
Yeah.
You can do it with that.
You do with that.
Yeah.
With my stroke line.
But I'm not doing that with mine. So, the next thing that I want to go over, I guess, is the hatches, I suppose. Yeah, so the hatches are interesting. They have a stroke and a fill. Okay, so that's what you're seeing up here. If you select the earth hatch down here, it has a stroke, and the stroke is on the right, remember. So I can make a black stroke, and let me exaggerate it with a really thick line, maybe a 10 or a 12. Okay, so that has thickness right now, okay? And it has a fill, so if I wanted it to also be a black fill, I can make a black fill. Or if I wanted it to be gray, I have to, well, it looks like I have to make a new swatch. I forget how to make new swatches.
It's not on the right.
No, they changed it. The old version it was.
Yeah.
That you can't do that.
There's colors.
You know, it's been a while since I've really modified colors. I'll have to look into that one too.
Mine also.
Make it pink though.
Mine is still yours. I
Color
have all
group.
my colors too.
I never have.
Do you just have to make a new folder or whatever?
No. I'll figure it out. I gotta look into it. That's one of the things that I have been meaning to actually learn. Anyway, so the easy way that I kind of played around with it is I made it a transparency. But if this exists above my drawing and I don't want it to be a transparency, I have to figure out how to make it gray. So I'm having trouble with that right now. But as a means of just figuring it out and making it gray, I can do that.
What did you do? Just change opacity on it?
I can do it that way. I don't want to do it that way. Yeah, let's do it that way. Yeah, I just changed the opacity. But if I wanted to have a black border and a gray fill, I can't use opacity, so I can override the color over here without a swatch. I don't know why I can't do it up there. That one let me do it. Now I can make a new one. I gotta look at it in more detail to give you an accurate response. It looks like when I select an AutoCAD color, I can create a new one. Anyway, I'll get back to that. But what you can do is double click on these in the bottom left. So this one that shows sort of like an empty square, that's your stroke. The one that shows the full fill is your fill, obviously. So you double click that and you can make it a gray by selecting something like that. Make sense? All right, so that's for your opaque hatches. The translucent ones are really simple. You just select it, and I want to change the color to yellow, I recall. So I'm going to go here and create a new swatch. Go away. Let's see, that. Go there, yellow. And yeah, there we go, yellow. And then I'll pretty much just make it translucent. Change the opacity to something that's lighter, like a 10. 10's too little, maybe 15. Whoops. Okay, pretty simple on that one, right guys?
Yeah.
And then the real cool part is when you have this really crazy drawing and you drop it onto the sheet and you got to change all these layers. Well, if you imported it properly, you have all your layers here. You just got to go down the line, pick the ones you want to have at certain thicknesses, and then have at it. So the wall layer, those in the background, I wanted those to be the thinnest. So I went here and I said black and 0.75. That's pretty light. I wanted my roof layer and my wall 2 layer to be something in the middle. So to select 2 layers at once, you just select all on that layer, hold shift, and select all on this layer. And make that black. Make this like a 2 or 3, whatever. I'm exaggerating these a little bit, but. And then the last one, I guess, would be the cut itself, which I made rather thick, something like a 4. It was black, it was empty. But the way that you fill it in is by creating a live paint. Live paint, you can go to Object and Live Paint and make. Or actually, it's not Live Paint. I forget what it's called to actually do it. Hold on, it's over here. Live Paint Bucket. So it is a live paint. I forget the terminology. Anyway, yes?
For you know the weight, the line, the stroke line, usually sometimes it doesn't print out.
It doesn't print the stroke line?
Yeah, like if it's too thin, it won't print out.
I've I've never seen that. If you can recreate that, I'd be interested to take a look at it with you. So anyway, the live paint bucket, I need you guys to pay attention to this one. Live paint buckets are, for all intents purposes, permanent. Once you make something a live paint, you can't really go back and change it without breaking the live paint and redoing it. So if you're doing a section with a lot of like little itsy bitsy pieces and stuff, you might want to consider live painting certain parts of it in mini groups. So if we'll talk about it later when we have a more intriguing project, but basically you hit K is the hotkey, or you can click on that. And you have to, I don't know why it makes you do this little intermediary step, but you click whatever objects you've already selected, and then it makes it a live paint group. I don't know why you have to take that second step and actually click it, but you do. But then you just can fill it in black and then start painting in. So you set your fill to black and you can fill it in like this.
Can you do that one more time?
Sure. Control Z, 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 Z. All right, so I selected my whole cut layer. I set a line weight for it. K is the live paint bucket, or you can click on this button right here. And then you have to click first. I don't know why you have to click first, but you have to click first, and then you can start painting. But you have to set your fill. So set your fill color, and then start painting like this. Fill color up here, or you can do it down here. Down here or up here. Okay? And then you can just hit escape, or actually not escape, sorry. You can go back to your select tool, click off of it, and you're good to go. So what we have is pretty much the same project. We had an import error, so some of the lines that were present here, some of these lines, are missing in Illustrator. I've got to figure out why it's glitching. See how some of those are gone here? I'll figure out why it's glitching, but ultimately we have two products that are largely the same with slightly different qualities. Oops, that's right, I changed the scale. Yeah. Okay, so we've got this and we have this. Pretty much the same. A little bit of a different workflow. So do you guys have more of a sense now of the pros and cons of the two?
Yeah.
All right. So at least for the first part of the class, well, actually, no, in a week or two, we're probably going to do some more diagramming type stuff that's going to require more advanced knowledge of Illustrator. The benefit, I think, that is significant, and the reason I spent this time with you on this, sorry, this video is getting really long, but the reason I'm spending this time with you on this is Illustrator is really great at diagramming components. The components like arrows and like little wavies and gradients, you know, like showing like heating and cooling gradients and stuff like that. Illustrator is excellent at that. Doing that in AutoCAD is going to be a real pain. So I want you to be aware that this is actually a good viable option for when you're doing this kind of stuff. So what questions do you have?
I thought you were going to do something on the right part because you deleted it.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'll just include this in this video then, and then I'll close it out. So to create another hatch pattern, it's a little weird sometimes because when you create line segments, it doesn't really have a good polyline. You know, you can do it with the pen tool, but the pen tool is kind of a pain, in my opinion. So I pretty much have to go onto the layer of the summer solstice thingy here and select the line tool, and then I have to draw with the line tool. So I click here. Oh, sorry, don't click. Click and drag. And I draw a line from the anchor point to the anchor point. Then I can draw another line from that anchor point to this anchor point. I already have one there, so I'll leave that one. Then I can go from here to here. Now, selecting them is kind of a pain because when I select this, it may or may not be the line that I want. It could be the line underneath. It depends on what your layer order is. So I select that, I select this by holding shift. I need to remember that while the box on this one shows like it's selected, it's not selected. I have to select it and then select this one. And now I've got all 4 of those lines selected. To hit K, make it a live paint by clicking, and then I have to fill it with the colors that I want. So I make it that, and I turn off the line, and I can fill it like that. I turn stroke off. There you go. Turn stroke off like that, and then change your transparency. Can I do it again? Yeah. I'll go back and do it again. The video is getting really long here. I'm going to stop the video, and then I'll show you again, okay?